Hi, this is Jerry with another car commentary. You know, right now in Virginia, people are talking about, actually all over the country, people are talking about removing the Confederate flag and Confederate monuments. Right? Recently, there was a rally here in Portsmouth where people wanted to move it and take this one monument down, and some people want to keep it up. Naturally, there's two sides to every coin. I want to make a couple of points real quick. Number one, when they took the flag down in South Carolina, right? They voted on it. People got upset about it. They took it down. They kind of forced it down the people's throat, and they just did it. Okay. Now, since they've taken that flag down, or since that flag has become an issue, right? Have you seen more Confederate flags? Have you seen more, Facebook photos with Confederate flags and trucks driving down the highway with Confederate flags and people putting Confederate flags up in their yards? Have you seen more of this? Yeah, you have. The Confederate flag was a flag that was kind of, yeah, it's part of our history, but no one flies it. Everybody kind of, I keep it a little flag in my house, maybe towel somewhere. But you force someone to give their right to own it, or their right to have pride in it, and you expect them to go, well, gee willikers, I guess I was wrong. I'll just sell my Confederate flag and I'll be gone. Look, eBay made it so that you couldn't buy a Confederate flag on eBay. And you know what I did? Now, I'm a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx. I went out and bought a Confederate flag. Right? Because you're not going to tell me what I can buy. You're not going to force things down my throat. I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you mentally, spiritually, physically. I'm going to fight you in every way I can to keep my rights. But here's this deal. You're tearing down these monuments. So they want to tear down monuments now to the Confederacy. They want to tear down this one in Portsmouth. I went to Bedford, Virginia. There's a Confederate monument right in front of the courthouse. All over Virginia. You go to Richmond, Virginia, drive down some of the highways there, some of the main streets there, and you'll see Confederate monuments. Right? If you're going to tear down Confederate monuments because you feel that they represent slavery, if you feel that the South fought for slaves and therefore they don't deserve to be part of American history, then you can't stop with Confederate monuments. You have to go to Washington, D.C. and tear down the Jefferson Memorial. You have to tear down the Washington Memorial. We have to rename Washington. 20-something presidents owned slaves. Even General Grant owned slaves. You're going to have to tear down all the words, monuments they said, simply because they owned slaves. You see, the vast majority who fought for the South did not own slaves. They were fighting for the right to do what they wanted to. If I want to own a slave, I can. If I don't want to own a slave, then the federal government ain't got a right to tell me. The vast majority of people were fighting for that. Right? So, if you're willing to say, I want to tear down the monuments to the Confederacy, but not go to Washington and tear down the Jefferson Memorial and the Washington Monument, right? If you're not willing to rename Washington or go to the Capitol building and wash away the apotheosis of Washington that's on the ceiling, if you're not willing to go down into the basement and remove the Washington sitting on the throne, if you're not willing to remove all the statues and recognitions of Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington and all the other slave owners, then you're a hypocrite. You see, because what you're saying is that you'll tolerate the slave owner having a monument, but you won't tolerate the man who fought for the right to own a slave. You'll tolerate the guys who put together a government based upon slavery being part of it, but you won't tolerate a monument to a people that said, listen, we reserve the right to do what we want to do, and that was owning slaves. Okay? Most people don't know this, but back when this country started, America was 13 colonies, and Virginia had the most power. South Carolina, I was just in North Carolina, I think, had the most power, and Virginia had the most power, had more people, right? And we were getting ready to get our butts kicked by Britain, by England. So these guys got together and they decided to put together a coalition, which became the United States. Now, many people wonder, why did we keep slavery in there? Well, they kept slavery in as part of this deal, even though Adams and Many of the government officials did not want slavery. All the northern guys didn't want slavery. Benjamin Franklin spoke out against it. He wanted to give all slaves their manumissions, and he was an abolitionist, and so was John Adams. But here's the deal: Thomas Jefferson, right, said that if we can't keep slavery in the deal, Virginia won't side. We won't be part of this whole new government thing. You see, Thomas Jefferson, the guy that the liberals tout. Oh, he was, he didn't believe in Jesus. He didn't believe in God. He was a deist. He was an agnostic. Thomas Jefferson was the one that said, look, if we don't keep slaves, if you're going to take away our right to own slaves, then we don't want to have nothing to do with it. You see, while Adams and Franklin and the others were fighting to get rid of slavery, they had to make a deal with the devil. They had to say to Jefferson, okay, and to the representative of North Carolina and other slave-owning states, okay, we need your manpower, we need your money, we need you to be part of this war here, so we're willing to accept slavery as part of the deal. Now, Jefferson said something a few years later. He said that he feared that his heart trembled when he thought about slavery and knew there was a just God. Abraham Lincoln said something later on. He said that he feared that every drop of blood that was spilt by the whip will have to be paid for by the sword. 300,000 Americans died for the North to free slaves, to keep the Union together. 300,000 Americans died for the South, not just to keep slaves, but to say we have a right to self-govern. Okay? So if you're going to tear down these monuments, you can't stop with these monuments here in Portsmouth. You can't say, oh, well, let's just do this. Let's just take down the ones to the Confederacy. You have to tear down all the monuments of those who own slaves. Otherwise, you are a hypocrite. That's why you have to stop with this crap about tearing down these monuments. Somebody wants to blow the image of Lee off Stone Mountain, Georgia. Really? Let me give you one more point. ISIS is a Sunni Muslim group that has gone haywire. ISIS is very radical. They're very extreme. They've recently, because we helped get rid of the Egyptian president, Mubarak, we called for him to get out. He was mean to his people, and Barack Obama and our government helped remove him. We've created a vacuum much worse than there was in Iraq, where ISIS came in and took control of some areas and destroyed statues of the pharaohs and statues that went back to ancient Egypt. They destroyed these things. In Afghanistan, when the Taliban was in charge, they blew up monuments that were thousands of years old because they were not represented, they didn't represent Muhammad. They were against Islam, or they were of a dead religion. But they blew up these monuments. They blew up this history. That's what you're doing. Jefferson Davis ain't alive. Ain't no one owned slaves in America. That's history. That's past. You're digging it up and saying, let's blow up and destroy these monuments and erase the history. You're going to have to erase the history of this nation. So I pray, and I ask, please share this, because it's a valid argument. People have to answer it. Have a good day. God bless America. God bless you. And as a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx, am I really the guy that should be sticking up for the Confederate flag? My father was told he couldn't marry my mother because she looked too white. He married her here in Virginia. The reason why they were allowed to get married is my mother was Puerto Rican and she could prove it. She had a license that said Jimenez. You see? So I understand. But I think you're going way overboard. Take it easy. Bye-bye.